evangelist, and this is actually my first time ever speaking about my journey in person ever. So, and I didn't write anything down.
It's all right.
All I could do is just tell the goodness of Jesus. So with me, like the nurse mentioned earlier, and first of all, I give honor to God. I give honor to all of you for being here, all to whom honor is due. And I didn't even know that this was Bishop Dinsmore's church. I did not know that until his lovely wife got up and you guys announced it, and I just asked Hope. So I will talk about him in a minute. If I forget, please someone remind me, because he is essential to what I've been through. Okay, so I get mammograms every single year like clockwork. And in 2016, it was Father's Day, and I was hanging out with my dad, and he started talking about his mom, and he never talks about his mom like ever. But he told me that they were living in a country in Belize, which is in Central America, and his mother had breast cancer, and they brought her to the United States to get the best care possible, and they ended up in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And so she was getting treatment, and she eventually passed away of breast cancer. And he had met my mom, and they got married, and they had me. And after she passed away, I was born. Her name was Pauline, and they named me Pauline. So all I knew was that I was named after her, but I didn't know that she had breast cancer until he told me that. 2 days after he provided me with that information, which she referred to as family history, he took a train from Bridgeport to Grand Central Station. Then he went into a McDonald's in Midtown Manhattan, and he shot himself in the head and committed suicide. So I then took that knowledge and I passed it along to my primary care physician. I passed it along to my OBGYN, just so we would have that family history available. So I was getting mammograms every single year, no problem. Then they came out with these 3D mammograms last year, and I got the 3D mammogram. I got a letter in the mail. It said, "We are pleased to inform you that your mammogram was fine, no cancer, no problem." So I'm like, wonderful, like, God is good, let's keep it moving. So a whole month went by, and then my OBGYN reached out to me and said, "I'd like for you to get an ultrasound." And I'm like, why? My 3D mammogram was fine. And she said, "Well, remember a few years ago, you told me that you had a grandmother that passed away of breast cancer, and a lot of African American women have dense breasts, and I just would like for you to get the ultrasound." So I listened to her, I got the ultrasound, and last year this time, I didn't even know that I had breast cancer. My ultrasound and biopsy were all the day after Thanksgiving, so less than a year. So we got the ultrasound, and the ultrasound picked up on 2 tumors, one under my arm where the lymph nodes were, and one in the breast. And so we just kind of like prayed about it, and I went to different people had referred me to Dr. Camilla Lawrence, who is the director of breast cancer surgery for Hartford Hospital. So I eventually went and met with her. We found out that under the arms, which I still can't lift my arm completely yet, the lymph nodes under the arm were benign, but I had a tumor in one of the breasts. And so I was stunned, especially because of the mammogram, but I was stunned by this, and I met with her, and she was absolutely gorgeous. She was actually the Juneteenth ambassador for the parade here in Bridgeport in June. So she walks in the room, and she's all fabulous, and she goes, "I recognize you and your husband from Facebook." And I was like, okay. And so we started like laughing, but the fun and games ended really quickly, because she's like, "Well, your lump is about 1.7 centimeters, and I could maybe cut it out with a lumpectomy, or maybe a mastectomy." And she's like saying all these words, I have no idea what she's talking about. And she's like, "And then you'll have chemo, and you'll lose your hair, and you could lose your nails, and you're gonna get sick," and I'm like, who is she talking about? Like, it just didn't feel like she was talking to me. It felt like she was talking about somebody else. I was just so far removed from this. but I listened to her, followed the process, went through many more steps, many more tests, and many more MRIs, and then I'll never forget, she called me on my son's birthday, and she told me that the tumor that they thought was 1.7 centimeters was actually 2.5. And then it was growing after that. It was becoming aggressive. And she said it was too big to even operate on, because after another biopsy, it revealed that wasn't even 2.5, it was 5 centimeters. So this was a tumor that was trying to kill my body. Very aggressive. It's called HER2 positive. And so I went through chemo first because she couldn't get to it. And I went through chemo and I suffered, and as my mom said, lost my hair, lost so much, lost weight, and as she said, it was during COVID. So I just kept telling people to pray for me, just pray for me. And people were like, what can I do, what can I do? I was like, just pray, just pray, just pray. And people were praying, God was listening, and one day the pastor of your church, Bishop Dinsmore, was actually preaching at my church, which is the First Cathedral Church in Bloomfield, Connecticut, and I was watching it online, and he talked about, he said Paula Williams, and that God was gonna heal Paula Williams, and my mother was in the audience, and she starts shouting and jumping, and everybody's rejoicing, and he said, I want her to have this prayer shawl. And Bishop Dinsmore came to my house and brought the prayer shawl to me, wrapped it around me, prayed with me, would continuously pray for me on his different broadcasts. He would go live, and I would say, hi, Bishop. He was like, we're praying, we're praying, we're praying. And so many people were praying. There was an encouragement parade in front of my house where there were police escorts. Over 70 cars came by, and they were just dropping off cars, and they were just like, we're praying, we're praying, we're praying. So I knew that as the prayers went up, the blessings would come down. So then I met with a plastic surgeon, and he's like, well, you know, we could cut into your stomach, and we could take fat out of your stomach, and build new breasts, and give you a whole new body, and all this stuff. And I said, I don't think I'm gonna need your services. That if you need to remove one of them, just remove both of them with this aggressive tumor. And I did not want reconstruction at all. So it was time for the operation, and Dr. Lawrence came in, and we asked if we could pray, and she said yes, and we prayed, and my husband was there just every step of the way, and we're praying, and we go in, and she cuts off both of my breasts, and I went home the very next day. After being home for about 2 to 3 days, this was on a Wednesday, that Saturday, I started feeling just an enormous amount of pain, just pain in this area, and I couldn't describe it, and I reached for my brother Trinity, I was like, get daddy, and then the pain wouldn't stop, and then I started seeing just gray circles, and I felt like I was gonna pass out, and I felt like I couldn't breathe, and my husband said my eyes started rolling in the back of my head, and he just grabbed me. It was a Saturday night. I had on a nightgown. It was raining. It was dark. He put me in the car and got me to the closest hospital, Hartford Hospital, and my operation just a couple days prior was in New Britain General Hospital, and everybody's like, why are you here? You just had an operation at the other hospital. You're not even supposed to be here. He could not get in touch with my doctor. She wasn't responding to her answering service, and he finally found her through Facebook Messenger. And he said, my wife needs you. And she's like, I'm 45 minutes away, I'll be there. And she came to a different hospital that she doesn't even work at. She opened me back up. There was a 1-liter hematoma crushing my chest. She removed it. And then she removed it, and then I needed blood transfusions in the hospital, had to stay longer in the hospital, was there for Father's Day, sneaking my husband in because I wasn't supposed to have visitors, and he was sleeping in the corner. And so then her office requested to see me just 2 weeks later, and I'm like, why are you asking to see me? Like, I can't even get out of bed. Like, there were days going through chemo where I would just stare at the wall, the ceiling would just be me and God. I went every 3 weeks for months. The day after, my husband would have to inject me in my stomach with more medication. It would give bone pain from the crown of my head all the way down, just pain, 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 pain. And so she wanted me to see her in 2 weeks. And I'm like, fine. Like, somehow I'll get there. So we went to see her, and she's examining me, and she's like, oh, your scars look good. I'm like, thanks. And then I'm laying down, and she goes, oh, I just want you to know, we took 12 lymph nodes from under your arm, and we sent them to the pathology lab, and I got the results from the pathology lab, and all 12 of them were benign. And I was like, well, praise God. And because it had only been 2 weeks, and I knew that this was a long process, getting test results, I just said to her, what about the tumor in the breast? Because I had removed the breast, and I knew that everybody was praying. And again, I did not think she would even know. She said when she went in to do the surgery, there was no cancer in your breast whatsoever. The tumor that was 5 centimeters was now 0 centimeters.
Praise God.
And I said, but what does this mean? And she said, this means that you are something that we refer to as NED, which stands for no evidence of disease. You are cancer free. I give all honor and all glory to God. He is just so amazing. And through it all, there was one verse that was just resonating in my soul. It was 2 Kings 20:5. And it said, I have heard your prayers, I have seen your tears, and I will heal you. And I knew before that he would heal me, after he would heal me, during he would heal me, and I'm standing here today completely healed.